That's all right. We're rolling now. So
Okay.
welcome, Augustine.
Hi.
And, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm pretty good. A little bit tired, but feeling excited to have a chat.
I want to start with August Baby.
Okay.
What's with that name?
Yeah, August baby. So, the most obvious thing about the name is that I'm born in August. But the other thing about it is I wanted to capture the playfulness of a baby's energy in the name of the artist's name, but also in my work. And I think with collaging, there is room to be quite playful. And so the name August Baby is kind of a reminder for me to tap into that. Yeah.
Okay, and you make collage.
Yeah, collage, paper collage.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love paper.
I'll go into that a little bit. What are you making? Like,
Yeah.
we know it's collage,
Yeah.
but I guess what are the themes you're exploring?
Yeah. Lots of different themes. Where do I start? Yeah, a really common theme that I like to explore is the human experience. Well, all living being experience in our modern world. So yeah, I guess a really common example is what the industrial modern society, the impacts of that industrial system on humans and non-humans. So that, yeah, you might see lots of images of like nature, something related to nature, sort of juxtaposed with something of a modern, maybe like a city building, or that's a little bit about some of the themes. Otherwise, I really like to put two things that are very similar together, or two things that are quite different, and pairing them. That's really fun. Yeah, and sometimes there's a bit of abstract stuff that's a bit more textural and playing with colour. But yeah, I would say in a lot of my work, there's the images are quite strong and specific. There's very specific imagery.
So because collage work can sometimes appear to me and probably other people as like somewhat random. Like it almost looks like, well, it's like I'm going to arbitrarily take this this image from a magazine and then this one, and I'm going to put them together. In your process, is there forethought, or is it based on like what you find, or do you go out looking for something to specific, like you mentioned animals, like a picture of a lion and a lamp, and collage them together? Do you look for that, or do you just kind of base it on what you're finding?
Yeah, good question. A bit of both, and there's other ways and processes as well. So yeah, I've got a bit of an image bank where I'll be, flicking through books and finding images, and many of them I might just really, really like. There's something about it that captures my attention, and I'll put it to the side. I might use it straight away, or I might just put it in the image bank, which is just really a collection of images, and put aside for for later use. And so sometimes, from time to time, I'll dig through that image bank and just sort of get a whole bunch out and see if I feel like they're ready to be used, or they're calling for something. But to try and answer your question, sometimes there's a really clear idea of what I'd like to play with. But other times it's more, quite, not random, but a bit more like less planned. So might be flicking through and, this is cool and this is cool. And I think this one will go with that, and sort of try to see how they can be pieced together. But for example, there's a piece that I have with there's an image of a desert, and there's a cutout of a camel. And in the cutout of the camel, I've put behind it an image of a polar bear. Yeah. And like you can see that it's the shape of a camel, and it's really clear that it's a polar bear on the inside. And with that one, like I had cut out the camel and put it in a different collage, and that one was put in a an Antarctic scene.
So you kind of switched the animals around. Polar bear.
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay,
yeah. So there's that camel in Antarctica, and then there's what's left is the desert with the camel cut out. And I really wanted to play with the same theme of putting something behind. And so I think for a while I had that desert piece with the camel cut out of it just put to the side for a while, until this polar bear image sort of showed up, and I don't remember how long between, but that was the image it was sort of meant to be there.
Okay, so when you're like chopping up magazine pages, book pages and stuff like that, say you cut out a polar bear, so you'll keep everything. You won't throw anything out.
Not everything. No. That's a dangerous game. With the polar bear, I guess what I'm trying to say is with that particular piece, I had it in my mind that I wanted something really juxtaposing to go behind that camel cutout, and it happened to be a polar bear. It could have been something else in a similar fashion. But whatever day that was, I found that polar bear and just remembered the camel cutout. So yeah, coming back to the keeping everything, it's quite an interesting practice actually. And this is what I love about creative practice, is that it brings up things for you that can be sort of integrated and linked to other parts of your life. And so that while there is a part of me that wants to keep every image for the possibility of using it, there's also a part of me that can't really be attached to it all. And there's a process of maybe really being attached to an image, and then either having to I guess use it, keep it for later, or let it go. And yeah, there's so many printed images out there, like so many.
What informs the decision to keep or get rid of something?
Yeah, I think it can be quite intuitive. It's a mix. Sometimes it's quite a functional reason. Like, okay, for example, I'm keeping envelopes. You get envelopes in the mail and you open it up, and on the inside there's like blue patterned paper.
Oh yeah.
Sometimes
it's been a while since I've seen one, because all I get are bills, so I don't really look.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's like a pattern or writing.
Yeah, there's a blue pattern. There's a couple of different blue ones. There's a black one that's like really wavy. It's like black and grey. So like, I've been keeping those, for example, specifically to use with collages. But other images that I find that I want to keep, it might not be so functional in that way. Might be more like, oh, I really like the color in this, or I really like whatever is in this image, the shape of the building, or this person's expression on their face. Like, sometimes an image really pulls you in and you actually don't know, and I think that's okay. I think that's like the mysteriousness of that is really quite and enticing, and it's exciting. Yeah.
You touch on something that I'm curious about: the people.
Yeah.
So you're getting these images from magazines and things like that.
Mainly books. Yeah, I have used magazines, but at the moment mainly books.
And so you got images of people that are published in them. Is there, I don't know, do you have a set of ethics when regarding, using a stranger's image that's public? That's, fair to say that it is public. But is there a set of ethics that you have on how you kind of maybe are representing that person? Because, you might have a picture or image. There's a few images that I've seen that have like a child in them or something like that. Yeah. How do you approach that when making a collage? I'm not sure if anyone even thinks about it.
Yeah, that's a great question. I remember asking someone, another collage artist, and I don't remember who it was, but I think they said something like, if the book is, publicly available, then it's okay. It's a bit of a grey area that honestly I haven't thought a lot about. And yeah, I don't know a lot about it, to be honest. Yeah.
I mean, your work kind of doesn't really delve into like any kind of risque, from what I've seen, risque or controversial kind of subject matter. So like you'd be in the clear quite easily, but I'd imagine other collage artists that are making, some a bit more, how could I say this, wild work.
Yeah.
It might be something that, I don't know, they could trip up on. Because, I mean, who knows who these people are and if they ever see your work and all that sort of stuff. But I'm sure you've got your own set of boundaries on how you represent people that are used in your collage work.
Yeah. I mean, do you mean if someone saw their face in one of my works?
Yeah.
And they had an issue with it or something.
I mean, I don't think they would have an issue with it, but let's say they did.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess what would that conversation look like?
Yeah, it would be interesting. I'll have to let you know if it does happen. A couple of things sort of come up for me when you speak about that. Yeah, like I've cut up books of people's photography. So like, photographer, like that's their art, and I've used their art to create a different piece of art. And this specific photographer I'm thinking of is not alive anymore. I mean, his work is still alive. So Yeah, it's a. Honestly, I don't really know.
That's another layer of like I guess maybe issues that could come up in not just other people's faces or whatever, but other people's artwork.
Yeah,
and I don't think there's anything wrong with it. You're using their artwork to create new artwork, which is awesome. I think that's great, and there's a probably quite a long history of it.
Of collage, yeah.
Yeah, of using other people's work to create new work, and it's great. You know, it's much better than copying someone's work. That's for sure.
Yeah, I guess it's like taking something and modifying it, and changing it to create something new. But yeah, the other thing that it brings up for me, this question, is for a time I was cutting up some books with Aboriginal people, and I spoke to a few different people. There's a few online that I've posted, but I spoke to some people just about their opinion, I spoke to some Aboriginal people about it. I spoke to some other non-Aboriginal people about it, and the thing. Look, I was exploring something definitely in that. I think that was maybe more for me. But the thing that came back to me when I was sort of questioning and just sort of looking for other people's opinion was what do the works mean to you, and what is your relationship to Aboriginal people, and what are you trying to show? What's your intention with these pieces? And so that sort of helped me, I guess, try to understand what was going on for me, because I'm not Aboriginal. My parents are migrants from Asia, and I was born here. So it was kind of a complex process. I created quite a few works, and I was quite excited about this body of work, but haven't really felt confident to show more of them.
Okay, the Aboriginal people you spoke to, they were pretty much okay with it. It sounds like they kind of were. Yeah,
look, one of them said that it was important to take note of the country where the people are from, and some of these images I had cut up and I'd thrown away the information, but the other thing that it's I feel like it's a complex conversation, and there's no simple answers. But the other thing that it brings up for me is, like, how do you decide who deserves what level of respect when you're using their imagery? Do we treat images of Aboriginal people the same as we do non-Aboriginal people? And sort of who decides that? And it's maybe something else sort of worth exploring.
I mean, it's hard to know if you're, like, I guess, for Aboriginal culture, there's an awareness of their culture here and in Australia anyway. But I mean, if you maybe talking about someone from, like, an image in a book of someone from Europe, I mean, we're aware that the culture there is different, and they'd probably care less about it, and it'd be more like if they had a problem, it'd be a personal problem rather than a problem due to their culture. So, I mean, you could err on the side of caution, I'd imagine, and just treat every image the same, but that's not easy to do.
Yeah.
You know, especially if you don't know where someone's from.
Mm-hmm.
So, my 2 cents on that. But
yeah,
and I think it's, you know, we should be sensitive to people's cultures and all that when making anything, any artwork or anything depicting people and their culture. Sorry, I almost forgot what words I was going to use, but that was a bit of a segue.
Yeah,
sorry.
I agree. No, that was good.
But there's a piece of your work right there next to you. The shapes. We were talking about this earlier. What did you get? The seed of.
This is the seed of life.
Seed of life. Okay.
Yeah, it's a it's a design that I'm still learning about, but it's 6 concentric circles with a 7th one in the middle. And the seed of life is a design that's found inside the flower of life, which is a larger geometric pattern.
Is the flower of life an actual flower? I'm going to sound like an idiot here. Is it an actual flower, or is it like a depiction of a flower?
Yeah, well, no, it's not an actual flower. It's a geometric design, but I think it's called the flower of life because it resembles flowers and flower petals. And the idea is that the seed of life is one design that is found in almost everything at a microscopic molecular level. Like if that was in a 3D form, you know, with 7 spheres conjoined, that's sort of like the building blocks of everything. So this is sort of going into ancient geometry, which I'm really is a new thing for me. I don't know a lot about it, but that's what I've read so far. Yeah, so it's something that I'm
imagining
to explore.
7 spheres kind of clustered together like that, almost looking like, you know, those pictures of a nucleus of an atom.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
So some say that it's the building blocks of the design of the entire universe.
So what set you down this path?
Honestly, I've been interested in mandala design, and I don't you know.
You're gonna have to tell me what that is.
Oh, mandala?
Yeah.
You've definitely seen them before. They're a design that are usually involve spheres or circular symbols. Also like flower petals, and they're used as a source of a visual meditation. So people would, through the design of the mandala, that can be also used as a process for meditation. But you know, it's very symmetrical, and there's different ways of creating mandalas, different colors, of course. And people, once you've made one, or if you have one, you can look at it and use it as a point of reference to meditate on. And people sort of make like mandalas in nature as well, you know, maybe at the beach, like with shells, and start with a small circle and just sort of like go out, or maybe in the woods with like sticks and leaves, and
it's starting to ring a bell for me.
You know, stones. So I was interested in mandala design And then because I've been reading about Tibetan Buddhism, I was interested in, it's called a Tibetan yantra, Y-A-N-T-R, yantra. And so similar to a mandala, it's a point of reference for meditation. And while I was looking for the yantra designs online, I came back to the Seed of Life, which I've seen before, and sort of played around with a little bit, but it's sort of come back. Yeah, it's come back to me now, and I've been playing with Seed of Life and yantra designs with paper now. So, yeah.
And this is you mentioned earlier that your background is Asian.
Yeah.
This is Asian, Eastern philosophy, is it? Is that where it comes from?
The yantra is yeah.
Is this a kind of I'm wondering if you're kind of diving into your roots a little bit, and and you're exploring this thing and hence making art out of it.
Yeah. The Seed of Life is not, I don't think it's necessarily Eastern, but the yantra is, I know that it's used in Tibetan Buddhism. I think similar yantra designs are used in Hinduism. But yeah, my parents are from Malaysia and Singapore with Chinese roots. So there's definitely a part of me that has been wanting to connect with that culture through art. And yeah, in some ways I think playing with yantra designs is going down that way a little bit, and that feels really good. Yeah.
Yeah, is when you're making these works, how do you select the image, like the images you're using? Is there a method? Is there, where, you'll say, yes, I'll use it. Does it have to, I guess, what am I trying to say? Does it have to meet any requirements, an image? Does it have to meet any requirements for you to use it in the work? Because it sounds like it's very, something you're exploring. It's quite special to you. I'm guessing you can't just use any image. So how do you choose an image?
Yeah. How do I choose an image? There's definitely a selection of books, specific books that I like to draw on. This one, for example, like it's using 2 images from 2 pages of the same book, and that one is it's like Australian landscapes or something. So yeah, I think it's quite dependent on what type of image I would like to use, and then what I have available. And yeah, with these types of collages, with the Seed of Life, I've been using mainly natural landscapes, images of nature and animals, and that feels fitting for what the symbol represents. And also, images of nature are just really nice to look at, aesthetically pleasing.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, they work.
Yeah,
they do. Is there anything you wouldn't use for this particular series of works?
Maybe images with text. Yeah,
there isn't a lot of text in your work when I was scrolling through your Instagram.
Not a lot. Like, from time to time I'll play with text. I feel like when I use text in collage, it's really it's really like making waves or something. Like it's changing something for me. I'm really drawn to image, and I find that words can really take the focus from the image.
Because you want to start reading it.
or it can like steer. It can steer your perspective or the meaning that you're getting from it. Words are great, obviously, but it can change the way you interact with a piece, I think. Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to just experiment with words, whether it's the actual design or behind the design. I haven't tried it, so.
No, I quite. I mean, I don't know. I quite like the way you do it. I'm definitely not telling you what to do here, but I like that there's no words. I think to look at it,
thank you.
I'd find it a little distracting because I'd be inclined to want to read it, and there's no point because it's completely out of context. And who knows? Maybe some collage artists pick a particular kind of page with a particular sentence and particular words.
Yeah.
I guess that can. Yeah, I'm just talking myself out of that now. You know.
Well. Yeah. I mean, there's many people that would find value in collaging with words. There was one time I was collaging with a friend who's a writer and a poet, and she was having a great time just cutting words up and jumbling them and rearranging them and creating something new. And I remember for her there was something really there was something about having the limit of what's on the page and the limit of those words to play with. It was kind of like a little challenge.
So she would make like poetry out of like the words on a particular page.
Yes,
that's really interesting.
Yeah,
that sounds.
So
that's a challenge.
Yeah, you know, I mean that's some kind of collage. It's I don't know if you call it a type of poetry, but yeah, that's something that can be fun to do. But yeah, I tend to use image more than words.
Yeah, and like some of the other themes you're exploring as well, a lot of space, which is, you know, right up my alley. I like that sort of stuff, as in outer space and
okay, cool,
and things like that. And I mean, there's one that really stood out to me. Well, there's a couple, right? I can't remember what they're called, but it was the one with the dentist and the child, and then behind there were like some monkeys in the same kind of situation, like and I'm just like, how do you figure that out? How does that happen? Like if unless they were presented to me side by side as separate images, I couldn't come up with it. I got to be honest with you.
Nah, thanks for bringing that one up. I remember a lot of my collages and how they came together. That one was, I had found the image of the dentist and the child just looking in their mouth, and I liked it, and I don't really know why, you know. And so I had put it aside, and I think what happened was I remembered seeing something similar in another book, and it was the monkey looking in the other monkey's mouth. And so I think I just had to look for it and sift through. I've got a book with monkeys and apes. And so it's I guess that one came together in a way where So like I have my collection of books, and from time to time new material will come through, after I go up shopping or whatever, or someone gives me a book or I find one. As the new material comes in and I'm flicking through that, I'm also keeping in mind or in my memory what's available already in my image bank. And if something jumps up that I think will go together with something else, then it feels like I'm bringing those images into to have some sort of purpose, because before they was just sort of like laying separate and sort of almost like sleeping. But then when you bring them together, it feels like they found a home or something.
Is it something that, are you consciously thinking about it, or does it just happen? Like you see this image and then you remember the other one. Is that kind of how it works?
I mean, that's just one way. Like consciously and intentionally. Sometimes I'm like, okay, I've got this image of a I guess I'll come back to that really simple. There's one with a building. There's like a forest, and I've like ripped the middle of that image and put a building behind it. So with that one, that was very specifically, I want a building, I want a forest, and I'll look for that. But the one with the monkeys and the dentist and the child, that was very much more the first process of like, I've got this, cool, all right, I'm gonna put it here, and then something comes up and like, oh, that'll go really good with that, and try it and see what happens.
Making those connections, I'm just wondering if that's something that you think like is innate in you, or is it like a skill you can build on, just like kind of like recognizing patterns sort of thing. Is it something that has gotten easier for you as you've kind of gone along with this?
I'm not really sure. Sometimes it feels natural. Yeah, I feel like it's something that I've always done before I started collaging. I started collaging in 2020. And I think what drew me to collage was something that I do, which is, imagining something in a space that doesn't usually go there. Or, just sort of playing with imagination and seeing patterns, recognizing patterns. Paying attention to light and perspective, and a recent one I did was really simple. I like really simple as well, very minimal. I had cut out a dinosaur and like put it in a kitchen scene. And like it's
I saw that. Is that the one with the tail just goes out of frame a little bit?
Yeah. It's like a green and pink dinosaur, and the book with where the kitchen image came from, it's like pretty like it's not a special book, but it's just like domestic scenes with nothing in them but the furniture. And I mentioned that one because it's like, okay, I've got this really this really simple image of a kitchen and there's nothing in there. What could go in there that's kind of quirky and doesn't really belong in there? And I could put a person in there, but like, what's interesting about that?
You want to see a dinosaur?
Yeah, and I've got a great book of dinosaurs. So maybe that was a bit of a roundabout way of coming to that, but I think you understand what I'm saying.
The reason I'm asking about how you're making the connections, and if you think you can, if it's something innate or something you can learn, is because you do collage art therapy and workshops. And I'm just wondering if it's something, like if you feel it's something, it's a skill that can be built on, like recognizing what goes with what, or is it more up, you know, like can you train yourself to get better? Like maybe you can train yourself to get better at crosswords.
Yeah.
You know, that sort of thing.
Crosswords. Sudoku.
Crosswords are like a word collage.
Yeah.
That you fill the gaps in. I don't know. Don't quote me on that though. I don't know what I'm talking about.
I feel like, yeah, it's good. It's a good question. I feel like every artist will you know have their own sort of flavor and style. What comes to mind when you ask that is thinking about technique and maybe little tricks. And I think that's also the beauty of collage. Like there are little techniques that you can try that many people do and are capable of. And then there's the which images do you choose, because there's so many. And I think that's maybe where the personal flavor is. At least that's the way I see it. And when I talk about technique or like little tricks, this is something that I have to mention. My friend Kate, who got me started on collage, she's an amazing artist. You know, I just went to her place. I told her, hey, I want to start collaging. Can you show me what to do? And we just had a little session at her place, like, you know, on the floor, books everywhere. But one thing she mentioned to me was kind of a classic collage technique is finding images with windows or doors or frames, some sort of like something with an opening. And, you know, a picture frame, for example, if you cut that out, then you can have something coming through it or going in it. Like a, you know, like a leg or like a, I don't know, a monster's face or something. So there's like, I guess that's one technique. And yeah, there's other little ones you can do, but to try and answer your question about the innate part of it, I guess there are some skills that you can teach, and maybe you can encourage or inspire others to look out for. But then I think what's innate is a person's own intuition, which is their own personal experience of the world, which would influence their choices.
Yeah, and in the kind of realm of art therapy, which I'm guessing you facilitate art therapy.
So not yet.
Not yet, or you're studying it?
Yeah, I'm in my first year of, so I'm doing my master's therapeutic arts.
Okay.
In other words, art therapy. And so I do facilitate collage workshops, and I like to sort of splash in bits of art therapy in them. And of course I tell the participants, and there are always invitations for participants, if they would like to, if they're open to that.
Specifically to collage, how does like a workshop how is a workshop different from the collage workshop? Different from collage art therapy? Like, what do you do differently?
Yeah. So, maybe in the traditional sense, a workshop is a lot about technique and giving instruction. I do a bit of that, definitely. And when I say splashes of art therapy in the workshops, for example, I had one just last weekend at Sunshine Library, and after the first hour of collaging, I invited the participants to just have 5 minutes, just sit with what they had created for 5 minutes in silence, and just have some quiet time with what came through for them, and they were really open to it. They were very receptive, and they took that on board. And so we sat in silence, but I also sort of gave them a few prompts. So, in case anyone was like, what are we doing here? We're just sitting in silence, So some of the prompts, for example, were, maybe you'd like to ask the collage a question. Maybe something like, what would you like to share with me? Or is there anything you'd like to tell me? What's important to know here? Really open questions. Or the collage might be asking you something. And so if you're quiet and you sort of sit with, maybe something will come through. So after we had done that for 5 minutes, I just said, at any time during the day, feel welcome to do that. And what's cool about that, it's a very, very simple process. But what it does is sort of opens a dialogue with the art, and it's sort of, you start to treat it as a living thing. This is kind of going into animism, which maybe you've heard about, treating everything as a living thing. And so when you open the dialogue, it can help to connect with the art as something that it's not. It's separate to you, but it's not really separate, because
it's like an extension of you, isn't it?
An extension of you. Yeah, some people might say that, but it's more like you enter the dialogue, you open the dialogue, and you enter a relationship. And it's for me, the way I see it, it's not so much as like I created this thing. It's like we co-created this together.
Also, like the art created the artist. Am I understanding that right?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I definitely wasn't making light of it.
Some sort of like interrelated experience, interconnected experience.
How is that? Like somebody coming in for a workshop, they might not be expecting that. Some of them. How do they take that?
Yeah, well, it's funny. One of the participants said that they weren't expecting it. At the start of the workshop, I told them, it's fully transparent. I said, I'm a student, I'm still learning, but I'd like to invite a few little processes here and there. As little offerings, and maybe something that you might like to do some other time when you're creating something else.
I might try some of this actually.
Yeah,
my own work. Yeah.
Yeah, I found processes like that useful or valuable. So, yeah.
So, I guess once you're a fully qualified, accredited art therapist, and you're kind of, I guess, what was I had thought of something, but look, I find art making frustrating. This is where art therapy, I think to myself, is there a downside to it? And if you're the type of person who gets frustrated when you're trying to do something and it's not actually working the way you want, like, is that a risk in art therapy, that you're actually, you're actually traumatizing or the person's traumatizing themselves, and they're kind of making them worse? Is that a risk?
I feel like it can be useful information.
Yeah.
It can be maybe an access point for exploring or inquiring into that feeling, that frustration. And then that feeling can be, you can move through that feeling with the art making. Maybe you have a block of clay and you're, smashing into the clay, or dropping it on the table, or you're getting paper and you're just ripping it to shreds. What we're learning in this course that I'm doing is that almost anything and everything can be used as a point of inquiry. And if someone's feeling frustrated or angry about something not going well, like art making not going well, I think that can be a really rich experience for them to explore what that is.
Yeah.
As confronting as it may be.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I was just thinking of myself, if I was having some art therapy, drawing would be the last thing. Okay. Because I can't draw and I'm frustrated. I get, if I try and draw something, I just get really frustrated. But maybe something like collage, I'd probably enjoy it more. Well, not enjoy it, I'd feel better. But then I'm guessing, when you're doing art therapy, it's not results driven, is it?
No.
Yeah, and that's where that's the difference between art therapy and a workshop, I guess. And but me being a creative, I'm results driven. So art therapy probably wouldn't work for me at all.
You'd be surprised.
Really?
Yeah. I think it's there's a lot to say about what you just shared. Even the words "I can't draw," not just you, but many people, they believe that, and it's something really simple, for example, which might be really confronting or difficult, challenging to do for someone like you, is to use your non-dominant hand to draw something. Really, for most people, it's quite difficult to do that, or it's hard to be in control with your non-dominant hand. But what I'm trying to say is, like you said, art therapy is not results based. It's not outcome based. It's more about the process, and there's no goal to create something beautiful or some sort of masterpiece. Whatever comes through and whatever that looks like, it's that sort of, whatever it is, it's welcome, and whatever feelings you have towards it or as you're making it, it's just more information to play with. But I just wanted to come back to the to the I can't draw or I can't paint or I'm not creative. I feel like that's such a common narrative for many people.
Yeah, I mean, I don't buy the I'm not creative. By our nature is to be creative. But sorry for interrupting you. Go on.
That's okay. Yeah, I agree with you. Our nature is to be creative. I mean, we all come from creation. But yeah, it's really, really interesting to hear people say things like, I can't play music. But what they really mean is they haven't tried, or they're not as skilled as some other people who have played piano or played guitar. But if you're in an art therapy session, for example, and there's a piano, even just having a bash and seeing what that feels like can be therapeutic, without any pressure to play Bach or Rachmaninoff or whatever. The freedom to just express, to just explore is not many of us are given that permission or that opportunity. And I think that's a reflection of some parts of our society and maybe some of our upbringing, depending on our families. And
I think some of the problem for me anyway is I say I can't draw, but then I'll think to myself, well, have you actually tried to learn? And the answer's no. And I think that's the case for a lot of people who they say they can't play guitar. And I think,
have they tried?
In that case, have they tried? Have they given it enough time? Because I don't know, it's kind of like people look at something like maybe playing an instrument like guitar, because so many people can play guitar, like all the bands that are out there and all that. And so the assumption is it's easy and you can learn it really quickly, but you can't. And they just don't give themselves enough time to just go through the steps of learning and all that. And I'm just, I mean, and going back to art therapy, I guess that's what you offer with art therapy, is that there's actually by accident, you're kind of just learning the basics just by playing and not being results driven. Because they're not thinking. You get discouraged when I get discouraged when if I want to draw something and I can't match what's in my head with the page. But if you're not results driven, well, you don't have that problem.
It takes the pressure off. The focus is not so much in there. This needs to look like this. And maybe that's why different forms of abstract art are difficult for people to understand, because they're trying to see something in it, or they're what does this mean? But when you're doing something abstract, it's more intuitive, and it's more about the process, not so much about I need to paint a dog.
An abstract dog, maybe.
An abstract dog. But I'm wondering, just talking about learning and learning, whether it's a craft or an instrument or something, what's something that you learnt that maybe you didn't think you could at some point?
You put me on the spot here. I learnt how to use Google Docs.
Okay.
For some reason I didn't know, but then I found out I already knew how to, because it's like Microsoft Word. But bad example. Really, really bad example.
Helps you get organised?
I'm still not organised, to be honest. I don't know. I can't think of an answer other than with things like photography, just learning new. I do a lot of experimental sort of stuff, mucking around, and that's always a learning experience. So like, but I can't think of a specific thing that I've actually stuck with. Definitely not drawing.
Okay.
But
what about podcasting?
Well, I'll tell you what. Yeah. Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah.
I don't know how if I could say I'm proficient, but yeah, I'm getting better.
Yeah.
I think so anyway. Yeah, that's a good example.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think the thing there was I wasn't really thinking about it. I was just going with it, and it's the same sort of thing. For other people, I guess, if you're not focused on doing it perfectly and doing it a certain way and all that, you'll just learn by default because you're enjoying it.
Yeah, that I agree with that. I think something for me lately that I've been noticing about myself is how I form habits. So for example, if sometime last year I said, I want to get out into the garden more. And even though I said that and I wanted to do that, there was a barrier for some reason. And what it took for me to get out there was, making a cup of tea and then just going out into the backyard. And that started as just with my morning tea for 5-10 minutes, and then making that a habit each morning, and then that becoming 5-10 minutes to become a little bit longer, and then a little bit longer, and then by a certain time I'm spending a lot of time in the garden. And I find that as well with my creative practices, that I just need to start, and I just need to start small, and just a little bit here and a little bit there, instead of having this this big goal or idea in my head to complete something. It's not about completing the thing for me. It's more just need to do little bits here and there.
I think that works for most people. Just incremental, small steps. It works, but a lot of us aren't really good at it. I know we want to jump to the finish. We want to jump to the finish line.
Yeah.
But all the good stuff is in that. All the learning, all the, I guess, the positivity is from the small steps and the, and the incremental learning. But I'm worried that this is going to start becoming a therapy session for me. So,
yeah.
But I think we can wrap this up.
Yeah, that feels good.
Augustine, I think it's been a lovely chat.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed it. Thanks so much for your questions and your curiosity. I've had a nice time.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Done.